Hello viewers, my name is Adam,
Yeah, I'm here.
and this is Seeking Media Productions, here to bring you part 2 of our Star Wars franchise Deconstruction. With all the conflicts that revolve within the known galaxy, the common threads that bind them all together are the concepts of hope and balance. The stories are told from the perspectives of characters set amongst a backdrop of eternal war. Towards the end, the narrative focus is painted with a limited color palette of black and white. The driving force behind what pushes the protagonists along their journey is that they fervently believe that what they are doing is just, and that the oppressive forces that they fight against are evil and need to be destroyed or overthrown.
In past installments, these stories were presented through the lens of freedom fighters against a tyrannical regime. Influences such as the original trilogy are obviously made clear, with the antagonistic empire closely mirroring the real-world threat of Nazism back in World War II. Though a powerful metaphor, this story structure is tired and overused. The same can be stated for the reliance of the retelling of a call to action of a chosen savior supposedly born from a line of heroes or divinity.
The world, or in fact the galaxy, is wide and expansive, so that to continue the stories set within the franchise, creators should look towards writing tales that reflect the complexity of its living ecosystem. Simply stating that one side is bad and the other does nothing to illustrate the call for balance. We've addressed in our previous episode that Star Wars has always had a problem with steering their political intrigue to the forefront of their stories. Throughout the entirety of the Clone Wars, civil disputes and trade dealings were used as a pushing point of conflict. These issues never caught the audience's attention since there is a disconnect as to what is being traded and how they affect the many lives in the galaxy. The great example of how balance of government can be addressed in the series is no further than the Hunger Games. Despite its tyrannical system, the capital heavily relies on the distribution of resources from the 12 districts it governs. You understand the many rules and regulations that are placed on each district and the hierarchy of some areas that are treated better than others.
The political aspects of Star Wars is also unclear as we move further into the sequel trilogy, starting with The Force Awakens. For a series of films that are set after the events of Return of the Jedi, we never experience what type of government was created once the Empire was defeated. The complex nature of politics needs to tackle many societal issues that are affected in the expansive setting in Star Wars. Star Wars has a wealth of diverse species that unfortunately are not fully realized in mainstream media. Stories that do tackle the issues of race in Star Wars are most commonly in television shows and comics. However, the majority of audiences are only exposed to the theatrical release films. These leave amounts of key storylines picked up and filtered through the gaze of far more human characters, which are almost always depicted as one particular race or culture. A possible story to reflect the perspective could be about how other races in the galaxy begin to rebel against the humans due to the two galactic conflicts, the Empire and the First Order.
As balance relies towards the Force and those who answer its call, the eternal struggle almost always presents itself as those who value the light pushing back or destroying those who follow the path of the dark. If we are to believe that Jedi are keepers of peace and desire harmony with the Force, it would be prudent to illustrate their need to keep both aspects of the Force alive and working in tandem. It should also be noted that just because someone is known to be Force sensitive should not mean that they are destined to be Jedi or Sith. Further stories may want to explore the lives of independent Force users for a more unique perspective. However, the only way to truly showcase the issue would be to finally tackle what the Force is and what it really wants.
It is widely understood that the Force is the glue which binds the fate of the series of Star Wars. What is not comprehended about the Force is its desires and its presence as it relates to each character and situation. A common phrase which is thrown around the series is "May the Force be with you." But what exactly does this mean? The Force is responsible for allowing Force-sensitive individuals to levitate objects, push or pull things, read and sometimes influence the thoughts of others, and even shoot lightning from one's fingertips. It's truly a magnificent spectacle to see what powers are possible to be achieved with the Force. But at the end of the day, is that really all the Force is good for?
The most basic and arguably the only presentation of the Force is that as a power that the Jedi and Sith use against one another. A major mistake or missed opportunity that has influenced the series is the concept of midichlorians. When Lucas introduced these tiny creatures, he did so to provide a means to explain why certain individuals held a higher connection and ability to use the Force than others. Midichlorians are basically measured as a power system and therefore correlate with the Force existing as a physical and scientific concept rather than the mystical divine presence.
For many fans, this concept and the very existence of midichlorians is a total betrayal and affront to the mythos of the Star Wars in general. However, the true issue which lies with the theme is not their presence, but how they are used. Going forward, the acknowledgement of the midichlorians needs to be addressed again, rather as a concept that will be passed off as old knowledge from a bygone era, or further explored.
A series which could help and explain the midichlorians would strangely enough appear in the critically acclaimed author Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles. In the series, vampires are created and empowered thanks to the presence of a spiritual entity known as a male. Though conceived and illustrated as a supernatural force, a male in the process he influences the production of vampires is presented as both scientific and mystical, as he is commonly associated as spreading like an invisible web which intertwines and connects with each of his hosts.
Referencing the Force as an actual character in the series could be a major step forward in providing the audience a better understanding of what it truly is. As a character, the Force can be represented as an invisible specter of unseen but recognized manipulator of events. Since Star Wars is mainly told through visual media, the Force can take its cues from such movies like James Cameron's Avatar or Richard Donner's The Omen. In Avatar, the ancestral presence on the planet of Pandora is known as Awa, which generally takes on a neutral role in the planet's ecosystem. Awa is shown through various scenes as being the voice of the dead and biological nervous systems which the planet's inhabitants can commune Awa's will is depicted in scenes that show the planet's organisms fighting back and working together with various characters.
The Omen depicts the devil as an unseen force that actively influences events in favor of its demonic offspring, Damien. Whether it's alluring a priest to his doom or showing the way a potential victim will die in a photo, the devil is more than felt throughout the movie. Both of these films showcase clever ways to illustrate a possible light or dark aspect of an unseen force-like character working behind the scenes. In addition, in how the Force is used, there should be many depictions shown to be the audience on what the Force is capable of. Characters who are Force sensitive in nature are usually showcasing abilities that were addressed earlier, but with advancements in filmmaking technology, more imaginative depictions can be realized. Some variety of the Force have been seen in the expanded universe, or most recently in animated series. In Star Wars Rebels, the character of Ezra Bridger has a unique connection to the Force, which allows him to communicate with wildlife on a far more empathetic and stronger level. The recent video game Jedi Fallen Order shows the character of Cal Kestis who can sense and interpret Force echoes, which allows him to see and understand an event or person's feelings through touching an object.
The unimaginable feats someone could do if they are highly connected to the Force could be truly amazing sight to see. Acts such as bending an environment to your will should be more than just levitating objects. If a Force user were to go on a battlefield with no physical weapon, but with their own body, the Force could be used as a self-protective armor or invisible extension of one's limbs. Extreme cases of cataclysmic Force usage could also depict the sacrifice of multiple lives in order to sustain a planet, or force the will of others to do your own bidding. Due to further development of filmmaking, Force abilities such as these could be made possible in today's live-action theatrical films or television series.
With all the planets, species, and technology that encompasses the known galaxy, one major aspect that has not been felt in the sequel trilogy of Star Wars has been the notable progression of life. As stated, there was no understanding of political structure after the Empire fell to the Rebel Alliance, given the 30-year time span from the events of Return of the Jedi to The Force Awakens. The suggestion of seeing the use of the same space vehicles, planet-destroying weapons is completely ludicrous. It would be effective to show that planetary defenses such as shielding or far more efficient scouting systems and transportation would have been developed. The use of lightsaber or blaster-resistant materials should be more common in the production and the use of armor. It's understandable that such advantages were restricted during the times of the Empire, but after 30 years, a society from a far, far away galaxy should be able to advance quickly, especially if everyone can jump across space and time at will.
Finally, the differences of each unique and diverse planet should be addressed in this series. It's complete nonsense that any organism is capable of traveling and living within the atmosphere and ecology of different worlds, at least without terraforming. Instead of only relying on shooting in places reminiscent of the landscapes and environments on Earth, perhaps introducing a far more alien backdrop would be proficient in the presentation, showing that a certain environment requires that characters utilize life-sustaining equipment and gear while battling the harsh and unforgiving pressures of an alien world will highlight the science fiction elements lacking in Star Wars.
Wow, this has been some stuff we had to lay out for a lot of people and a lot of ideas and thoughts and feelings that we've had for this particular franchise for quite some time. And the thing is, I want people to realize, even though that we basically made a huge video, these are just suggestions at the end of the day. And from what we come here and what we're reading about, and from Disney's own developments going forward, there's season 2 of The Mandalorian coming out. But them going way back to the new, what they're calling the High Republic, is something that me and Aaron's been discussing, not from this video, from this channel, but something that
could have possibly been a more organic way of doing things after the sequel trilogy was going to be panned out anyway.
Of course, I mean, actually having a chance to explore, the real origins of the Jedi Order and just the mythos in its beginnings is definitely something that we actually thought was a possibility to actually visit after we were done with the sequel series. But as always, please, if you like this particular video, share it, like that, little notification down at the bottom, hit that little bell, and we'll be back here to give you guys even more great episodes.
Thank you for watching.
See ya.